What is going on, everyone? Today is Wednesday. I'm sorry I'm posting this video a little bit late. Some stuff came up and I had to film it a little bit later in the day. So I hope everyone's had a really good Wednesday. I'm sure a lot of you won't see this till Thursday, so I hope you have a really good Thursday too. That'll be fun. Today we're going to talk about the end of World War II and what impacts it had on the rest of the world. We're going to start with Europe, and we're really going to talk about what's going on in the rest of the world. We're not going to get too much farther in this class, unfortunately, so we will talk a little bit about the Cold War, and then we are done with the class after that. We will have a little final review, but we actually don't have a final in this class, so we're really close to being done. Whew, so everyone take a breath, and let's get ready to go. So we're talking about Europe first. Europe is devastated after World War II. Think about the loss of life. I really hope that you guys in this last few weeks or in this last period of World War II have really gotten a chance to think about how sad this war really is. A lot of people study it and they put this really cool spin on it, like, oh, cool tanks and cool soldiers and cool. It is not cool. The loss of life is insane. It is honestly insane how many people die in this war. So we have about 40,000 or 40 million people in Europe. Man, if you think about it too, with the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the loss of lives in these concentration camps, 6 million people, Jews that just get exterminated. It is a crazy amount. So look at this. Go ahead and look at this graph here. This is the amount of lives lost here in Europe. Now, really think about this. Out of these 40 million people that died, we have 2/3 of them that are civilians. That's an overwhelming number. So I hope you guys really got to see that. Man, just watching some of those videos just make me so sad about what really happened. And I don't wish for another world war. This is an amazing loss of life here, and it's really unnecessary. So Europe after World War II is obviously completely devastated. So major cities are destroyed. So London almost completely gone. We have Warsaw in Poland is literally rubble, and we have Berlin in Germany that over 95% of it is not even standing anymore. People are living in shambles of houses. They're living in rubbles, like literally rubble. They're living in storage shelters and underground caverns, whatever they can actually get out of the sun and into a place, they are living there. No running water, no electricity, barely any food. Europe is in a really bad place. This is going to actually lead to a communism in Europe. I know that seems like a crazy jump, like devastation, communism, but the Communist Party is offering like, hey, we can fix the economy. We can give you all a life that you want. We can split up all the goods among everyone and give everyone an equal lifestyle. And that's really appealing to people who have just lost everything. They see like others in the community that are still living okay, and they're like, hey, if I could even have a part of that, that would be totally fine. So it's going to lead to this big fight between, do we have democracy or do we have communism? This period of time after World War II is going to be called the Cold War era. And it really is going to be this fight between, do we have democracy or do we have communism? Next, we're going to look at the Soviet Union. Let's compare the United States and the Soviet Union real quick and talk about how amazingly they bounced back from this. The two superpowers after World War II are going to be the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States is only going to lose around 400,000 people. I know that's a lot of people, but in comparison with the Soviet Union, they lost 50 times that amount. So for every one person that died as a United States soldier, 50 of them are going to be from the Soviet Union. Like one person dies in the United States, 50 people die in the Soviet Union, if you put that into a comparison. So, how do they come out as a superpower? They figure out industrialization, they figure out how to take over other places and use communism to bounce back and make their economy amazing. They are going to take over the countries that had in Eastern Europe that still had Nazis in them. They're going to take those from the Nazis and make them communist. So you can see it on this map here. Eastern Germany, they're going to take over. They're going to build what's called the Berlin Wall. Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, Albania. Those are going to be countries that they are going to take over and make into communist countries. We'll see this on a map later on of the United States and the Soviet Union, but it's going to be pretty crazy, the difference between what the communist and non-communist. I think it's going to be a really cool map that you'll see when we talk about the United States. China is going to be another place that is definitely affected by the end of World War II and communism. Right off the bat in 1945, they're actually going to split and have this civil war between the nationalists and the communists. Eventually, the communists are going to take over China, and in 1949, it is going to become a communist government. So this is going to definitely heavily play into the Cold War era, and we'll see that later on in one of my videos. But China, I just want you to know they had a civil war, and they are going to come out of that as a communist nation. Japan is the next place that we are going to talk about. Japan, holy cow, poor Japan. So Hiroshima and Nagasaki killed about 140,000 people just instantly. Like they just straight up died, 140,000 people, not including radiation or being poisoned. Japan's not a crazy huge place to begin with. So the impacts are going to be a lot more than what we had previously thought. I don't know if the United States necessarily felt bad about it or not, but they are going to try to help Japan. So they are going to occupy Japan and try to help their government while they're trying to get through this place of rebuilding. I'm sure the people of Japan did not like this. You defeat us and then you occupy us. So there's this general named Douglas MacArthur, and he is actually going to take like a role of being the leader in Japan. It is going to work out for them. So by the 1980s, Japan is going to be an industrial powerhouse again. They are going to have a great government, a great economy. It's going to be left as a democracy with a constitutional monarchy, which is pretty neat. And they are going to actually flourish from American occupation. But I'm sure that was really hard to cope with. Like the people who just defeated you, taking you over, not usually the best period of time. But what it really did allow for is economic growth. They didn't have to worry about rebuilding their military, which is amazing. They got to focus on just rebuilding their economy while the United States protected them. So this is a good thing that did come out of this. I'm not saying what we did to Japan was right at all, but the US did step in to try to help them out in rebuilding their economy. Israel. So Israel is going to get formed out of Palestine. The United Nations is going to come together and they're going to say, hey, we need a place. Well, it's really the Jews are demanding a place where they can actually feel free and have like that freedom and religious freedom that they wanted. So the UN is going to break up Palestine, and it is going to create Israel out of that. Israel is then in 1948 going to declare themselves as an independent nation, and immediately they are going to get attacked. So the Muslims did not like that they broke up this land for them. The Muslims are going to see that as their land that they deserve, and so are the Israelites or the Jewish people, and they are going to fight for that land. So right off the bat, they're going to get invaded in 1948. They are going to win that. They are then going to get invaded in 1956, 1967, and 1973. And today, it's not like anything's changed. The Muslims still want that land back, and Israel is always in the news for something happening to them. Even after the first Iraq War, super funny, but first Iraq War, definitely not even against Israel. Iraq is retreating, and they were like, well, we might as well just launch some Scud missiles at Israel while we're at it. So they're on their retreat out of Saudi Arabia, they are just like launching these missiles over at Israel for no apparent reason at all besides they hate Israel. So a really interesting nation there. Decolonization is going to be another thing that came out of World War II. So decolonization, meaning that these colonized places are going to start claiming independence from the nations that claim them. Remember back a little while ago when we talked about the Industrial Revolution, how these places were getting like snagged up, especially during World War I? Well, World War II was their opportunity to gain independence because these nations that were fighting World War II were super weak. And they saw this as an opportunity to actually gain freedom from these places. So India is one that's very notable with Mahatma Gandhi is actually going to help them gain freedom by nonviolent protests. And after that, a lot of nations are going to proceed in getting their freedom, including Vietnam. A lot of the places in Africa are actually going to gain freedom. And we're going to have all of these little nations that are going to start popping up that have freedom outside of being colonized by another nation. Whoa. Latin America is not what we're talking about. We're going to talk about the United Nations real quick. It is going to be formed at this point in time. The UN, or United Nations, is at first going to consist of 48 different countries that kind of answer to what's called the Security Council. So the Security Council is going to be Britain, China, France, the United States, and the Soviet Union, who are all kind of seen as these bigger superpowers at this point in time. And people are going to have to start answering to them. And it will, if someone wants to go to war, it first goes to the UN, and then they make a decision on what's going to happen there. They're also going to have their own forces. So the United Nations has their own military that is going to consist of all of these nations' militaries combined. So troops from each nation are coming together to have this military. And again, the first Iraq War is a great example of this, where George Bush Sr., he is actually going to go to the UN. He's going to say, hey, Iraq is invading Saudi Arabia. What should we do about it? The UN is going to give them an ultimatum. And then later on, the UN actually deployed troops and ended it in a little over a month total, rather than having this war drag on, because they actually did it the correct way. If we look at the second Iraq War, they did not do it the correct way. And I hope you guys get to learn about that a little bit in government next year. That'll be super fun. Latin America really didn't change after all of this. When we talked about the Latin American Revolution, we talked about the different dictators that took over. So these military dictators that took over, and not much is going to change for them after World War II. Besides the fact that they're actually going to rely on the United States even more. They're going to start taking all of their raw goods, sending them to the United States. The United States is going to do whatever they need to with them, and then charge them ugu bucks for whatever raw materials they just sent and had sent back to them processed. This is going to lead to super, super poor people, because what they're doing is they're sending out their stuff, getting paid like minimum money for it, and then having to pay a bunch of money to just get back that same stuff because they don't have the manufacturing processes that the United States has. So we're going to have really poor nations led by military dictators. Venezuela is a good example of this still today. They have a military dictator, their currency expires, and they are not doing well at this point in time. The United States, last but not least, the United States is doing good, really good after World War II. After World War II, their economy is just going to blossom. not much infrastructure stuff happened to the United States. I know we lost 400,000 people in that war, but comparatively to the rest of the world, we are doing great. Uh, at this point in time, we were kind of like modern day China. We were manufacturing everything and sending it out and exporting way more than we imported. So we were importing the raw materials we needed and just exporting everything to them. So cars, any consumer goods that you can think of, we were at this point in time manufacturing. Nowadays, we see everything that's made in China. They probably felt the same way in Europe at that point in time. They're like, oh, another thing that's made in the USA. Anyways, so now we have the North America, we have the United States that kind of feels this pressure of being the top dog. And they see communism coming into the world and they're like, we need to stop that. And this is really what's going to lead to the Cold War era. I love this map that's on the screen right now. It is a top view of non-communists and the communists in the world. And it is a really great map to look at because you don't really realize how close everything really is until you take a top look. You kind of think of Russia as being super far away and like, Russia couldn't launch a missile and hit the United States. That's kind of false if you look at it from the top view. The world is round, guys. If we built a map that was this way to begin with, we would see the world in a totally different perspective. I could flip the globe upside down and it would still be the same globe. I could flip it sideways. It would still be the same globe, just a totally different view. I love this view of the map because it really gives you that perspective of what's going to happen. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please go ahead and answer the question that I left for you. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow, but remember, we are super close to being done. So keep on keeping on, get your work turned in. I'm accepting any late work. So guys, not from last semester, but from this semester, if you have something that you need to turn in, just turn it in. Just turn it in. And I will throw that into the grade book. We're doing A-OK. Let's get through this. I really look forward to seeing you guys next year. I know I won't have you as students, but it would be really great to see you in class. So swing by if you guys do see me next year. But I will talk to you tomorrow. I hope you all have a great day. Oh, man. I don't know how to exit out of this, so you guys get to enjoy. Oh, no. Cancel. Yep. Oh, well. Oh, no. All right. Goodbye.